Seafood,
Good afternoon, everybody.
Seacoast Food Pantry.
I want to welcome everybody to the August 9th, 2023 Portsmouth Conservation Commission meeting. First order of business, I think we just, our chair, Samantha Collins, is not going to be here tonight, so I'll be chair as our acting chair. And our first order of business is the approval of the July 12th, 2023 meeting minutes. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I had emailed some changes to Kate, who said she received them, and they were really just typo type things, nothing of substance. So if those are acceptable, then I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the, the July 12th meeting.
Thank you. Anybody want a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jess. And any other discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor?
I wasn't here, so I'm not voting.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so one abstain? And,
Abstain, yes.
Okay, and,
Never the official.
okay, great. Motion passes. So the second item on our agenda is the Wetlands Conditional Use Permit, new business, 67 Ridges Court. Does anybody want to speak to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Conservation Commission. John Shagnon from Ambit Haley Ward, representing Jeff Foy for this conditional use permit application. Also here is Lise McNaughton, the landscape architect who prepared the plan and the set. The application is for a conditional use permit. We also have a wetland app that will come up under that section of your agenda. So the applicant is looking to replace a paved parking area with a garage and attach it to the existing building. The applicant went to the zoning board and got relief to the front setback to place the building as far forward as possible and therefore as far away from the resource as possible. You have in your plans a site plan showing that there is the addition. There's also going to be a driveway replacement to porous, and then there's going to be a parking spot on the southerly side, which is also going to be porous. The applicant had asked for a wider garage, and that was denied by the ZBA. So to the south of that immediately is a proposed rain garden to handle treatment of stormwater runoff. And there are no impacts beyond a set of existing stone walls that those who came to the site walk saw. The next plan in the set, if we can move up, is the landscape plan, and it shows the proposed buffer plantings by the shoreline. That finger to the way south is an existing dock. There was a dock on the property now, so there's an opening there to access the dock. There's some plantings and some removal of invasives that occur to the south of the proposed rain garden, which is shown just south of that blue car. Also, the landscape architect has proposed two other rain catchment rain garden areas that are located to the right and left of a stairway that is shown on the plan. There is one correction to the plans. The stairway is marked in the temporary impact area, but actually no work is occurring on that stairway. It's an existing stone stairway. Oh, thank you. This area here. So there's the stone stairway. Those are the other two rain gardens with plantings as listed on the plan. There is no work on the stone steps. That was a mistaken identification in the coloring of the plan. That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. If you got any questions, we'd be glad to answer them and hope you get your approval here today.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
No, I was just wondering if there's any additional information to be added for the Wetlands Bureau permit.
Sure. The Wetland Bureau permit just added the usual stuff about no natural heritage impacts. Function of values assessment was performed by Steve Riker from our office. It included the coastal vulnerability assessment, and this, all these improvements, albeit the buffer plantings aren't, but it's all up above the projected sea level rise area. So thank you. I don't think there's anything else really to add in regards to your recommendations to the New Hampshire DES on the wetland, minor impact wetland permit app.
Thank you. Other questions? I had a question about the maintenance plan that you guys had put in here. One for the permeable pavers and one for the rain garden. I didn't see anything in there for the buffer plantings, and I was wondering if that could be, and maybe it is in there somewhere.
Yeah, number 2 talks about plantings on the
okay.
inspection and maintenance plan. Inspection and maintenance requirements. Number 2 talks about plantings. You see that? So go back down to previous pages. Nope, the other way, I think. Should be, keep going. There isn't a sheet for that. Yeah, there isn't a sheet that you fill out. Maybe we could add that in the future. But it's talked about, if you keep going earlier in the document, right there, number 2, plantings.
So what page is that?
Looks like this is page 16 of the whole packet.
Perfect, thank you.
And I note
yeah.
that there is one proposed condition of the staff memo that the wetland buffer placards be placed, and I guess if we could just talk about where those might be located, so the applicant has an idea of that.
Yeah, so in the past, it's been different for every applicant for the most part, based on where the buffer is located on their property, if there's already a good spot, like a tree that it could be posted on. For that property, perhaps maybe,
I would say outside, they were going to plant 5 feet along that
extending the salt marsh.
lower end, yeah. And
So,
so
further
up on that
into the
side of
yard,
it.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe closer to the salt marsh down there, and maybe one up by the rain garden, or that, I don't know.
I don't know, I was just thinking about 2 maybe along the border somewhere there.
Okay, yeah, in case there's any maybe neighbors or community members that walk
Yeah,
down the street
maybe we can
towards-
go back to the site plan, and,
waterfront.
because I know, it's not a situation where you'd put it at the 100-foot mark, because.
Right, that would be the house, right?
That would be the house.
Yeah.
But certainly there's an opportunity, because as you probably know,
Can you go to the
There's-
page with the planting plan?
Sure.
sure, as you probably know, there's a public access that runs along here. So possibly somewhere over, here, which is close to the 100-foot line,
Yep.
at this edge where the public comes by, it might be a very useful place to put a placard to say, hey, this is a wetland buffer, and then potentially the other place could be over here, sort of, there's a utility pole, I think, so maybe near the pole, so it's near the road and people would see it.
I think that's a great idea. 2 or 3 maybe, but I
Well,
like the
that's
idea
2.
of 2 in the public spots, and then do we still want to try one in front of the salt marsh just to indicate that
That
it's
was
a
what I was
sensitive,
thinking, yeah.
sensitive area? So
Okay.
3?
So
that's okay.
one sort of down in this area here, maybe?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, geez.
There you go,
There you go.
right there.
Right, so when you walk to the dock, you see it every time.
Yep, just on the other side of where you would walk through to get to the dock, yep.
Okay. We'll add those to the drawing for the planning board.
Perfect.
So on the planting plan too, or the information about plantings. One suggestion was to have you or the owners come and have the rain gardens kind of inspected after 1 year, or at least report back to the city on that, to make sure the plantings have survived or whatever.
Like an 80% success rate
Right.
sort of standard.
Have like an 80% success rate on the plants, just to confirm that.
Oh, sounds reasonable, Lise? Yep, sure. So that would be a condition.
Anybody else?
I have some questions.
Yes.
At the site inspection, I had asked if you knew what the square footage of the dwelling, the original dwelling and the additional is, and you only had the footprint. And I did not say, hey, can you bring that information to the meeting, but I was wondering, did you happen to get that in the last week?
You don't mean footprint, you mean gross square footage?
Exactly.
Of the
Square footage, not
structure.
footprint. Yep.
I don't.
Don't have it, okay.
I don't know.
I-
We have some idea roughly.
That was my bad. I should have asked if you
Sure.
could bring it to the meeting. And just to clarify, I know you're adding to the buffer zone with the blueberry bushes and whatever. The rest is all going to stay lawn, though? Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are notes in the drawing about not only the DES shoreline rules regarding improvements, but also the landscape plan notes, and so do the details, the NOFA standards for lawn care.
Yeah, that would be great, because it looks like it's pretty much a monoculture on that lawn right now, so, and it looks like it's pretty intensely managed, so if they follow those standards as required, that would be great. Any other questions? Does anybody want to make a motion? Allison?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the conditional use permit for 67 Ridges Court with 3 stipulations. One is that the wetland boundary markers be placed in the places that were discussed at this meeting. 2, that there is inspection of the rain gardens to ensure that there's 80% survival of the plants in the rain gardens after a year, and that they will follow NOFA standards for the care of their lawn.
Does anybody want to second that? Thank you.
I'll second
Yes,
that.
Jess, thank you. Okay, discussion?
I did not make the site walk last week, and from what I can tell on the plans, that it is within an area that's already paved. I mean, okay. I figured you were all very thorough about it, and like I said, that's what it looks like from the plans, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it was, at the site, they definitely clarified that.
Yeah.
Then the question was asked, so. I just wanted to add too, I appreciate the fact that there's the 1-car garage that's remaining or going to be on the other side of the building. That's my understanding. And then that there's a new 1-car garage, and kind of indicated some sort of effort being made not to just come and put a 2-car garage on the buffer side of the building, which is appreciated, so. And all the plantings are very much appreciated. But anybody else? Okay, for the conditional use permit, all those in favor? Opposed? And
I'll make the same motion for the NHDES.
you're abstaining, or,
No, sorry.
sorry,
Are we done with discussion? I did have just a few other.
did you vote, or?
No, I didn't vote. I'm still sort of in like processing mode.
Okay.
Are we done with discussion? For this
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, we were done with discussion, and I probably went too fast, maybe. Sorry.
For my slow brain. Could I ask a couple questions, or do you want to move on? We can move on.
Well, we did the vote, but,
Okay.
so I don't,
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
But there'll be
I'm happy to- I'm happy
definitely,
to vote.
you could do it for the wetland permit? Okay, sorry. So I think, but we don't know what your vote was, so it would be an abstention.
No, I'll vote yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Lynn.
That's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the NHDES for the application, the standard dredge and fill at 67 Ridges Court with the same stipulations. Would you like me to say the stipulations again?
You want the stipulations again? No.
We're all set, all three?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now's discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about other people's reactions to this, but there were a couple things that got my attention in the application. One is classifying this as a high-risk tolerance to flooding. And I think that's because it's really just like a private entity that's taking on the risk as opposed to like a social sort of risk. But it does strike me that this is a pretty vulnerable house to sea level rise. And obviously a lot of that lawn is space where you're going to see the impacts of sea level rise pretty soon.
Yeah.
Similarly with the
it does
groundwater.
rise up, though. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go to the topographic plan, it's pretty flat, but once you get to that wall, it goes up pretty precipitously up to a higher elevation in the teens.
Right.
The maps that I looked at for flooding that were included in the packet looked like it came nowhere near the house. There's a pretty steep slope
Yeah.
up to the house.
But the property itself is subject to flooding,
Yeah.
even now in the king tides.
Yeah.
The property
And
does.
so all of that lawn, right, is space that, naturally would become salt marsh over time, just. And I see that you're adding like a little bit of a buffer, but it's, oh, sorry about that, thank you. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to acknowledge that sort of struck me in the application, that it was a little dismissive of some of the changes that you should expect to see on this property.
So I guess I'll talk to Steve, who prepared it, about, but you're saying because he assessed it a certain way, the future risk, that you don't agree with it?
Kind of minimizing the risk, exactly.
Minimizing the risk. Yeah. I don't think there is a risk to the structure of sea level rise. The property itself is going to flood more. But
Although even like, the groundwater rise, right, is also significant there. And if, groundwater is already 36 inches below the surface and you're expecting, 29 inches of rise there, you're going to see like an increased saturation around the house, I guess is my prediction.
Yep. We can debate if there's a linear relationship between groundwater and sea level rise. I don't believe there is, but that's another story.
Yeah,
Another
I mean, those
day.
are the numbers you put in the application, so.
That's what
going
the
off of
state
those.
requires.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so just, as long as you kind of thought about those risks.
Sure, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I don't think, because of the nature of the tides, it's not like a, month and a half in the spring event. It's yearly, but it's based on the position of the tide and varies, and then the tide goes out, so.
Right, discrete moments.
Yeah, discrete moments. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, thank you for that, Sarita.
So I went out of procedure a little bit because we have a motion, right? You actually made a motion,
Yes, I did.
so we didn't second it.
Oh,
And
we don't discuss, we should have seconded it and then discussed
that's
it.
good. Yeah, that was my fault. Sorry. Anybody want to second the original motion? I haven't done this in a while.
seconded.
Okay, seconded. Abby seconded. So, okay, so that was the beginning of discussion. Any other discussion? No, and, oh my gosh, I'm totally out of procedure, but was there anybody in the public that wanted to speak on this? No? Okay. So we'll do a vote. All those in favor? And opposed? So one opposition, and everybody voted, right?
Still consistent.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next item is another standard dredge and fill, Tony Ron Park. Anybody to speak to that?
Sorry, it's a pretty thick packet. Let me find your site plan. I think that's existing conditions.
Just a question. So Stuart isn't here and Sam isn't here. So
All right.
is Brian and Abby supposed to vote?
Yep.
Did
Thank you.
Brian vote last time too? Because I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
saw
I'm not
Sam.
sure either.
You did?
I don't know.
I saw it. Thank you.
Brian? Brian? Did you vote?
I didn't cast a vote. I couldn't tell what the
Yeah,
numbers were.
I should have done that at the beginning, so,
I'm in support of it, so
okay. And you can keep voting, because we do have 2 people missing.
thank you.
I didn't realize Stuart wasn't here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Shumrick. I work at Unitil in the Gas Engineering Department. With me today is Matt Pelletier from PPS. Matt, excuse me, Matt was a design engineer for this proposed project. Matt works with PPS. I'm going to discuss Unitil's proposal to install what we call a launcher and receiver barrel at Tony Ron Park off of Corporate Drive here in Portsmouth. It borders the southbound lane of the limited access right-of-way of the Spalding Turnpike. Unitil has an existing facility there right now. It's what we call it's a pig receiver, but Unitil would like to add a pig launcher as well as a receiver. And when I refer to pig, this this here is what this is a pig. The pig is installed in the pipeline to assess the integrity of the pipeline. Basically, this pig can measure the thickness of the steel in the pipeline to tell if there's any corrosion, and any rust, any dents, or any anomalies that might be hazardous to the pipeline. The federal government requires us to inspect assess the integrity of our pipelines every 7 years in what's called a high consequence area, also referred to as an HCA. HCAs are basically areas that are thickly congested or thickly populated. Unitil recently reached an agreement with the Pease Development Authority to, I wonder if this will come up, Pease Development Authority for a 30-year agreement to use this existing location in the pipeline, buried pipeline, for 30 years. Unitil proposed this project to the Pease Development Authority last November, and the board actually accepted this project. So we went forward with our dredge and fill application for minor impacts. If I could, I'll just describe this project site. So make it that, yeah. So right now, this site is accessed through this grassy area here. But every time we access it, we end up running the grassy area. So we proposed to put in a gravel road, permanent gravel road to this location, and that was accepted by the PDA. This is the baseball field here, and there's a dugout here, and this is our proposed location for the launcher and receiver barrel, which is about 5 feet off of the existing limited access right-of-way fencing. Could somebody change the page, please?
Sure. Is there a specific page you want? This is a large site plan.
Yeah, if you just go back to the site plan, this isn't a large site plan. I guess I pretty much described. This is a receiver. The pig that I just showed you would be launched from the Route 33 location, which is right across from the Target and the Lowe's. The pig would be launched from there and received at this proposed location. We do have an existing barrel there, but we wanted to replace it to upgrade to our current standards. The other barrel, or pig barrel, is a launcher, and it's 12-inch launcher for the 12-inch pipe segment that goes north. This will actually go to Bean Hill, which is where the water tank is across from the Walmart on the southbound lane of Spalding Turnpike. If anybody was on site, I erroneously said that it was going to be received at the old entrance to Pease Air Force Base, which is at Gosling Road, Pease Boulevard. So we have a 6-foot chain link fence around this area, 110 by 20 feet wide. We also have guardrails proposed for all vehicle protection all the way around it. I don't think this shows it all the way around, but we're proposing to have a guardrail all the way around the facility. And as I mentioned before, we propose to improve this with gravel road, access road. And again, we only expect to use this every 7 years. That's every 7 years is a program that the federal government requires for pipeline inspection. That's really all I have, if there's any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I had a
Yes.
question. I was interested in some of the background that you provided on, the wetland assessment and kind of digging into the history of the site. And I guess I was wondering if you would just share a little bit more about what you learned about the hydrology of the site and how the site has changed. I mean, and sort of how this wetland is connected to other features. If that's not in your sort of wheelhouse, that's totally fine too. It just caught my attention in your application. You talked about sort of like man-made wetlands, and I was kind of curious about the origin of those.
We don't know like the full history of the
Right.
site. Our
Can you
understanding
introduce
is-
yourself? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Matt Pelletier from PPS, consulting engineer on behalf of Unitil. Yeah, we don't have the full history of the site. Whatever was kind of in Mark Jacobs' report is kind of the info we have. But from our understanding is it used to be, a full wetland, and they kind of filled it in when they built the baseball fields. So kind of what he explained was, if this field wasn't like maintained, eventually like wetland species would grow. That's why he delineated the whole thing as a wetland, even though it's a a mowed grass field. But I mean, that's the kind of the extent of the knowledge we have right now.
Okay. There was the term like man-made kind of wetland.
Yeah, he's referring to the field.
The field. Okay, just because it's been so
Yeah.
altered. Okay.
Yeah, man-made or altered.
Okay.
And do you know what year the baseball field was built?
I do not know.
Other questions? I maybe have a little bit of a question as sort of associated with that is with you guys having this be basically a wetland, technically, and you're putting a road in the wetland, a gravel road in it, so you're filling in the wetland. Is there an opportunity to kind of mitigate that a little bit with letting the area to the left of that roadway grow up after you do the work? Because there is some natural growth going on further to the left, where it looks like it's been allowed to grow back, and you definitely see wetland plantings and things like that.
Yeah, so everywhere, like that, the whole access road is currently a mowed field. We're not really planning on touching anything that we don't have to. Everything to the left on this screen right now is a mowed field, and that's kind of up to PDA to maintain and own, and they mow it right now. So.
So
Unless I'm misunderstanding your question.
I think you're understanding it, but you're giving, I'm looking for an answer that maybe, is there a way for you to talk to the PDA to say,
If they'll let it grow.
to let it grow?
Yeah, we could.
If you
of
could
course
put
we
that
ask them
request in.
I mean, as of right now, well, there is some CMP utility poles out there that they look like they have to access, so, Eversource, excuse me.
Yeah, Eversource.
So if it doesn't interfere with that, I'm sure they'd be open to it.
Yeah, I think they've let it grow up around some of the poles that they're allowed to, that
Yep.
they need to access already. So it's just a matter of letting it come in to the roadway.
Yep, that's definitely something we can discuss with PDA.
That would be great. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions or any other concerns from people? No? And my understanding is you don't need a conditional use permit for this? I would,
No, so
you
the
would
land's
normally,
owned,
but,
yeah, so the land's owned by the Peace Development Authority, and our understanding is they kind of have local jurisdiction, and they govern with the land use controls. And they determined in their review that we did not need a CUP with them. And I think the city of Portsmouth is, saying whatever PDA requires is what is required with the city of Portsmouth. So, short answer is no, we
okay.
don't need a CUP.
And do you know if that's based on the fact that this is a permitted use? Or do you not know?
Yes, it's based on it being a utility structure and being a permitted use under their land use controls.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does somebody want to make a motion? We're gonna make it
I'm
quick.
the only one who'll ever do it.
The designated motion.
Allison,
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of this project to New Hampshire DES with the stipulation that Unitil requests that the PDA not mow when you're facing the highway, that they not mow to the left of the project,
or the driveway, I guess.
yeah, of the driveway. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? As usual, it's really hard on these because it's the PDA.
Yep.
And we aren't gonna see it again, but, yeah, if you could do that, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're at other business. Yay. So I think we have somebody here to give us a presentation on the trail clearing project, right?
Good afternoon. I'd just like to thank you all for your time. My name is Ian Cook. I'm a Boy Scout, and this is my trail proposer for my Eagle Scout. I'm working on my Eagle Scout currently. The trail location is off of Ocean Ave. It is on Site 25, which is referenced in the Pula study, and it is kind of cross-sectioned with the rail trail. It is about a quarter-mile trail, and it's shaped like a balloon. So you access it from the rail trail, and then you go into kind of a popped balloon shape.
Can I ask a question?
As you guys may know, there is
So this is in the Great Bog area?
Nope,
This is across the street off of Ocean Road.
Ocean Road.
So if you're going north on Ocean, it's, and you go over the train tracks, or where the train tracks used to be.
Used to be, yeah.
It's down the tracks a little bit on the
On the left?
So
Yes.
in
Oh,
between
okay,
Ocean
okay,
and
okay.
Banfield?
I see it, yeah.
Yep. As you guys may know, they are putting in a more permanent rail trail that will be paved. So this is going to be kind of off that. They have already started on the construction on that, and they're going to be starting paving soon. Me personally, I don't like to walk in a straight line for a while, so this idea came to me because I like to kind of go off into trails, and it would be a branch branch off, and my grandfather walks this trail constantly, and he says that he'd like something that kind of goes off into it. I know that I've gone on many other rail trails and have found things like that. I love to mountain bike and bike on rail trails, and there are kind of sections off where you can go onto a different trail and will loop right back, so there will only be one access point into it.
Whose property is it?
It's the city of Portsmouth,
City of
and
Portsmouth.
there are some boundaries that I have because there are some neighbors around that, but it is the city of Portsmouth's land. That is the trail access point. It's right now you can't really see it because it's not really defined, but over by the red arrow, you can see a path already that looks like it was accessed sometime by maybe the neighbors, but it is not a trail right now. But over by the red area or the cinder block is where I like to have my sign, which will be on the next slide. My proposed sign, it won't have any concrete, it will just be a gravel fill, which will be a 4x4 non-treated cedar post. And the proposed sign, it's named after my grandfather, and it just talks about how it's a project, and it's the collaboration with you guys, the city of Portsmouth. So that's my proposal for the sign, and where the red arrow was is where the sign would like to go.
And how much of that area will you be clearing? Distance, width, ways, everything?
It would be a 5-foot wide path. You can already kind of see it sort of between that tree and the one over by the arrow is. I'm trying to make a very minimal impact onto the land, so as much as minimal I can do for the trail. This is the reference what I was talking about, the pool study. On site 25, it talks about kind of utilizing the site and what would be a good utilization for it. And it does say that having a trail on that site would be a good way to utilize the land. And that's how I came across this site, and this is why I thought it was a good site for building a trail on. You can see that the kind of boundaries of the yellow, that is all the city of Portsmouth's land, so I am in the boundaries of the city of Portsmouth, and I'm not crossing over to anybody else's land.
So it's left off of Banfield Road, but it would be, if you're going north, it would be right, because I was the one that looked at the whole Pula number 25.
Yes.
And, yeah, so it's between Banfield Road and Ocean Road.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And the only other thing is, I know you want to clear a path, but cutting down any tree over 6 inches in diameter is not something that we...
Of course. My trail, which I've kind of already mapped out, does not have any really big obstructions into it, and I'm not cutting down any major trees or anything. It would just be kind of clearing branches and the walkway. Parking will between I don't know if you can see it, but the 4 and 5 is where the trailheads are. There already are kind of some spaces, but with the new rail trail that's going to, I'm guessing there's going to be putting more parking into it. I know some people park already at those locations, but there's only, I'd say, about 1 to 2 spots. But it's mostly access for people who are already on the trail, and I know a lot of locals use the rail trail, and most people park over down by downtown. Like I was saying about clearing the trail, just trying to remove limbs, shrubs, and very small trees, of course not over a 6-inch diameter, and just raking out the debris to kind of more settle it in, and I'll be putting down mulch or wood chips to kind of help, not all of it, but to kind of show where the trail is and to kind of make sure it's certain where you can go. Yes.
Where's the mulch that you're going to be getting?
I don't know the exact source, but I'm guessing the city of Portsmouth, I get the mulch from there.
The only thing that we need to be sure of is that there's, in that mulch, that there's no invasive that's then going to take hold along your trail.
Of course.
So I'm not sure about the source of the mulch.
I think, yeah, a big reason that Ian came here today as well was to get some suggestions from us for what sort of things should be put down or how best to clear the trail. So if I'll just jump in here real quick, Peter and I have been working with Ian for a couple months now about his Eagle project. And so he decided to help clear this trail that's already sort of established. So we walked it about a month or two ago with him. And for the most part, most of it is established, but it is on city conservation land where it is a permitted use to blaze a trail. But there are concerns because there's wetlands out there and there's also buffer area. And I think looking at Map Geo, we could tell that a majority of the trail would be within the buffer. So we wanted to make sure that any material we do put out there is something that we all approve of. So I don't know if you have mulch suggestions?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they put a lot of the wood chips on the cross-country course.
Yep.
And that seems to be okay, but it's a heavily shaded pathway, so there are a lot of things that normally would grow if they were in the sun. So as long as we're in a shaded area, I think that that mulch should be fine.
Wood chip,
Yeah.
sort of.
It is very well shaded. There are a little bit of spots of sun, but mostly it is a very shaded area.
I could just say one other thing about the mulch question. I've seen places around the high school where the city puts down mulch, which is, I mean, I love the way they maintain the trails back there, but there is a lot of like plastic debris that seems to be in the mulch. So just, maybe that's something that we could organize some people to help you with when you get to that stage, to like,
Of course.
pick up that plastic.
And I think what they did originally with that was they used mulch from the city that had crammed, but I'm not sure. I mean, everybody was so pleased with reusing some material. And I don't think we could really approve of that at all because there's just no way to get that plastic all out. So it would have to be mulch that is wood chips that really are not going to have any invasive species in it and not going to have any plastics or anything like that. It would be great to do a reuse, but I think you're going to have to avoid that.
Of course.
The wood chips are different than mulch. I mean, when you buy wood chips,
Yeah.
they're not, they're aged a little bit, but not much. They also, wood chips, for better or for worse, they sort of have a natural weed suppressant other than being a cover, is that they actually pull from the soil nutrients to biodegrade, so they can actually have a killing zone. So that might be something, I mean, anyway, just throwing that out there. So you don't want too much of a killing zone if it's going near trees and things you want to save, but anyway. But it also would be cleaner and wouldn't have all the
It's more like a weed suppressant than a killing zone. It just absorbs the nitrogen that the plants require to grow in the area that they're in.
Right.
So it's not like they're going to send out.
Yeah, it's not far, but it definitely, yeah, anyway. Also, a lot of mulches have dyes and stuff in them, and so wood chips you'd be guaranteed you wouldn't have any of that stuff either. But, side note.
So does that confuse you totally?
No, I was wondering would you suggest mulch or wood chips? Would wood chips be better than mulch for kind of preserving and make sure the area is more defined?
Wood chips would be better than mulch.
Okay.
They'll last longer,
And
too.
not a reuse product, which is going to be a little hard to find, but
I wonder if there's a local tree service that you might be able to get some wood chip kind of things. I know some of them around here kind of have a pretty rough, what they call mulch, but I would call more wood chips, so maybe that might be something worth looking into.
There are definitely services around, you can get them. A lot of the arborists, they're looking for ways to get rid of the trees, and you can mulch with stuff that's not as marketable.
Contaminated.
Yeah.
So if you need help on that, there are definitely, and Elliott has some too, so they're locals, very local, but. Where is this trail that's already sort of formed? Because I use the bike trail quite a bit, but I haven't so much this year. Is it, I know the streets, it's between, but when I go out on that thing, I'm not paying attention to where Banfield is and Ocean. I know it's way past the reservoir area is near the cemetery, so it's beyond that.
What? No, we're talking.
Is it where you get
You know where
those?
Peverly Hill is?
Yeah, oh,
You
yeah.
have to drive all the way down Banfield until you get to the railroad tracks there. Then, if you look to the left, that's where the property is.
Right, okay, so that's what I want to know, is left and right and where, so. So I'm wondering, what's going on around that trail? Are there Because some of them have a lot of marshes area. Is it one of these little ones that just sort of goes like up over the thing and then?
So are you talking about like, on the actual site itself?
Yeah,
There
Like-
are some wetlands areas, but my trail doesn't go near any of them.
I'm just trying to place it since, for my own benefit. Okay. Because I know when
Going
you,
in the opposite direction of the Great Bog. So like if you turn one way down the railroad tracks, you're going toward the Great Bog. If you turn the other way down the railroad tracks, you're going toward Ocean Road.
yeah, no, I know. I mean, I've gone all the way to the power plant from that thing. So I'm just trying to place it on as I go on it without. Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea would be to have the entrance, so if you're coming off of Banfield, at the intersection of Banfield and Ocean, you take a left, go down the street a little bit, and on the left is where the rail used to cross the road on Ocean. And if you go left there, there's space for a parking spot or two on the rail where it was, and then you walk down the rail about
Half a mile.
a quarter of a mile, maybe? Yeah. Third of a mile?
On the rail trail from,
So right, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is where it would be. So here's where you might park,
Right.
or drop your bike or walk down here. And then
exactly.
enter on the side here.
That area is where I park to access location. I'd say it's about 500 feet maybe around to the access point. And there'll only be one access point. I know it shows two on that, but it's just a mess up with the tracker. So that first kind of straight line and not the loop, that is already kind of established. I'm thinking that maybe neighbors walk their dogs kind of in that back of that. It's definitely very well established.
Yep.
And it does go, I don't think it goes through any wetlands there, but the trail that I would be blazing, or not blazing, but kind of making more of a trail is the kind of the circle part of it, which was the proposed trail on top. That area right there, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to remember where it was, just so I'd have a scenic thing of, because I remember, there.
When
lots
you
of things
drive on there,
left
it,
and right.
it comes up on you very quickly. I've had to turn around multiple times to kind of get to that
hidden.
area. You turn the corner and it's right there.
Yep.
Ian, do you have more to present?
Yes. Trail maintenance. For maintaining the trail, would just be kind of cleaning the trail if there's any garbage or plastic, and kind of maintaining the sign and making sure no trees have fallen onto the actual path. I'm working with the scouts to see if they can one day out of the year go down and maintain it once a year to make sure there is a pick up have a trash day. I know that our scouts have a kind of conservation day where they go to beach cleanups and go around the city of Portsmouth and clean up areas, and we can add that to one of the areas list. But for bigger fallen trees, I'd have to get an outside party organization for that. Thank you.
How long's the trail?
Thank you very much.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
go
Were you
ahead.
able to track the length of it when you did the tracking app?
Yes, it was a little over a quarter of a mile, about 0.36.
So does this involve, because I just was out there this morning, and so there's, I think, your trail where you showed that access, and then a little bit further on that left is a very groomed trail. Is that what you were talking about, where neighbors were walking their dogs or something, or is that part of yours? It's
That'd
like
be-
in the woods still.
That'd be part of mine. When you go up kind of over, when you go up over there,
Yep.
there's kind of a loop, I'd say, and there's some old pieces of plank wood. I'm thinking from the neighbors. I think they use it as a dog walking site for their backyard. I've seen one or two dogs back there. So it's not established trail on any maps. It's just kind of a trail that people have walked around their backyards.
And that abuts the neighbor to the right.
So there
Is
are-
that your trail that abuts the neighbor to the right?
There are neighbors to the right and the left of it. Is there a pointer?
Yeah.
That area right there, there are there's a house right here, and this is all his land. And he has this kind of a little circle where he walks his dog, and there's neighbors here with their property, but they've taken kind of a loop like this and kind of created their own little trail in the back of it. And you can see over in this area, it's very beautiful. There's very tall trees, and they have wood pallets and old planks just kind of rotting away as like a little trail access, and it's just a big loop. And so this area right here is already established already, and then this would be my blazing of it. This entirely is about 0.36.
So I had a question about the wetland area.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's the part that crosses over in the middle. So because there is a trail that goes right in between two wetlands.
Yes,
Existing.
I think that is what this area right here, there is wetlands right here, and I think that this trail does cross over it right there.
So I think if people use that area anymore for crossing over those wetlands, it's going to cause a problem because it's already starting to not erode but wear it down. And there's trees in between, big trees in between the two wetlands, and then the trail kind of goes in between and it's very narrow. So I definitely wouldn't want you to be putting any wood chips there.
Of course, yes.
But at the same time, I think, is there any way to close that part down to people, and especially bicycles? Because it's going to cause problems, I think, with the wetlands.
I wouldn't know. I just know it's a loop in the back, which the neighbors do use to walk their dogs. It definitely has been a trail that they've used for, I'd say, over a couple of years. It's widened out, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It goes between two wetland areas, and it's a loop. I wouldn't know if you could shut that down, because I don't know if there's any other access points into it that wouldn't be invading into the property of these people right here, and definitely once you go past this area, you invade into this person's property.
Okay, so it doesn't go around to the back. I can't see it very well, but it looks like it goes, that like cuts through, so if the red's your trail, it goes around to the back.
And do you cross over the rail trail? Is that, like, or are those just?
No, I do not cross over the rail trail. I access the trail through the rail trail.
Oh, God, I think those other red lines are.
Yes,
They're just arrows pointing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There.
Got it there, yeah.
Because it was not zoomed in, it was hard to tell what was trail. Got it.
And these two things right here are the exact same trail. It's just an error on the mapping part.
Got it.
So it'd just be that.
So right where the cursor is right now, that's a trail, right? Going in between the wetlands.
This area right
So-
here is where it's going between the wetlands. This trail right here.
Is that, were you saying that there's just one trail and then it's like a lollipop? Is that, or are there two separate trails next to each
So-
other returning back to the rail trail?
There's one trail that the neighbors made in a loop like this that is used. So this part right here is just part of one big trail that the neighbors
Right.
used. And then this is not developed. This would be the part that I would be developing just by maintaining and clearing the trail here.
Okay, and what's with that second line parallel? Are
These
you-
two right here.
Those two, yeah.
That's just an error. It's only
That's
one
an error,
trail.
okay, that's what I was trying to,
Yeah.
okay. So it's one trail, one line,
Yes.
one path,
It's just
excuse
an-
me, and then it opens up.
Yeah, it's just an error on the app's part of it, but it's just one trail, so it'd be like this.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then it's kind of a lollipop. So there'd be only one access point limiting damage to the trail.
So Peter and Kate, did you go out there?
So we walked a portion of it that was pretty well established already. We didn't. I don't know if we walked the area that you were thinking of establishing.
So
the
this
northern
area
part.
you guys did not walk. You walked this area, the loop that the neighbors made.
Okay. Are there certain spots that maybe wouldn't need wood chips necessarily? That they
Yes,
could
it would
just
not be a full thing. It's just there's some dips maybe from I don't know, from areas that would just kind of fill in to make it more of a smooth walk for people.
safety.
Safety reasons, yes.
Yeah.
Do you need wood chips at all? Because hiking trails don't have these things. Is the idea, I couldn't hear all of it in the beginning. is the idea to have bikes on it, or is it just walking?
I think that with having a trail, I definitely do believe that since there are bikes on the rail trail, I definitely think bikers would use this as an access point.
So the chips would help with erosion.
Yes.
Lynn?
I have like a bunch of ideas for you. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I get super excited about trail projects, I have to say. Like, it must be really fun, right? To kind
Yes.
of, like, this is like one of my favorite things to do, right? Is to go out into the woods. I will say that, like, the wildlife biologists that I hang out with are always super cautious about trail projects. And so here's a crazy statistic in my mind, that they can see that wildlife actually change their behavior quite a bit from foot traffic, more than they do from road traffic. Like, a trail is actually a bigger impact as far as wildlife behavior goes than a road,
Wow.
which is crazy. And I think it's because people are sort of erratic and like, there's dogs, and it's just, I think, that's sort of an impact you don't really see and think about too much, or at least I never did. So there's some tools that you can use to kind of help with this trail planning process. And it's a tool called Trails for People and Wildlife. It's publicly available on Granite, this GIS portal. And it basically lets you kind of try to site your trails in a way that's the least impact. They've got kind of everything color coded from highest impact to lowest impact. And that area is really complicated. I have it open on my screen right now. It's a mix of high impact and low impact areas. So you could just kind of double check that you're
Definitely.
putting it as, and I think folks here who are talking about wetlands, it's probably the wetland areas that are those high impact areas.
Right.
And I guess I'm also thinking about too, like, it's interesting to me that there's that area where the neighbors have already cleared. And it sounds like there's at least two other areas where there's some kind of informal trails. You said kind of at both ends, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess I love the idea of trails kind of connecting people in neighborhoods, so that they really get used, and you can kind of like concentrate use in a few trails rather than everybody gets their own trail. So I
Yeah.
guess I wonder if there's any way to do this, talking to the neighbors a little bit so that everybody could get behind, like, this is the one trail we're going to use. We're going to protect this other area. Well, I don't know. Have you had any conversations
I
with
haven't
neighbors?
had any conversations with neighbors.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not to make your life more complicated. But
Kate, I was wondering, is there a citywide ordinance that tells people that they need to keep their dog leashed on trails in the city of Portsmouth? I know you have to keep your dog leashed over at the cross-country trail, but I don't know if that law is on other trails, because, I mean, dogs chase wildlife, they destroy things, and I really feel like it's an ordinance I could get behind anyway, having dogs leashed.
Peter may inform us. Sounds like there is.
There definitely are dogs out there.
yeah, that's so hard.
Yeah, there's a citywide leash law,
That's what I thought.
unless it's an off-leash area, which is designated.
Okay, so all trails, dogs should be on leashes?
Everywhere in the city, dogs should be on a leash except where it's designated off-leash area.
Okay, good, thank you.
So is there a way to put signs out there? Can the city put signs out there, or?
I would think so.
I think you could ask Ian to put signs out there.
Ian,
Definitely, I could put signs out there for.
do you have a budget for your project?
Yes, it's about $1,500. That would be including the mulch for it, but I don't know exactly where I'd be getting the mulch from. And since I'm not mulching the entire area, I definitely have to. It'd probably be a bit less than that.
That's great. Yes, Jess.
Great job. I agree with Lynn. I think this is a really cool project. It's cool to see you taking initiative
Thank you.
and working on this. Sort of to piggyback on what has been said already, that was one of the things that I was thinking about, if it might be possible to put a few signs out along the trail to kind of encourage people to stay on your trail so that
I wonder about our wetland boundary signs or something.
Right, yeah, so they kind of stay out of the wetlands, and, we can keep some of that other property protected and for wildlife, and just kind of help encourage people to stick to the trail that you want to create. I think that would be helpful, and, maybe you can tag on and keep your dogs on the leash too, please, but that might be something to
I
help.
could put that on the sign.
Yeah.
Also, there might be, back to the wood chips, there might be companies who are willing to donate wood chips. So you should look into that, because I know there are situations where people have gotten them free, because the tree companies are just trying to get rid of it. So anyway, keep that in mind for your budget, that there might
Thank
be,
you.
especially if it's going to a public trail, it's nice PR for them.
And that
so.
it's a scout that's,
Right. And
that
it's the
a
scout,
Boy
right,
Scout.
exactly. Get your parents in, Colin.
If I could just add, I think, so it sounds like we sort of want to suggest minimizing where wood chips are going,
Yep.
along with signs about dogs on leash, if possible, throughout the trail. And I think, Allison, you mentioned this we have wetland boundary marker signs at the city that we encourage and actually require applicants that are getting wetland conditional use permits to put up to signify across the city where sensitive environmental areas are. So that's something that we sell, but I think we would probably be comfortable donating a couple boundary markers to go along the trail, since this is city property, to really get people aware that it's a sensitive area to stay on trail.
And they're lovely, so they would accent the trail nicely, as opposed to being annoying or ugly. Thanks to Kate.
Good looking signs. And I should also mention that I think Peter and I have discussed that if the Conservation Commission is supportive of the project and is supportive of the suggestions, that our last step is really to get the city manager to sign off on this and show her support as well, which I think she'd be willing to do. But that's sort of our last step after we decide tonight.
I think people are going to be more encouraged to support the Conservation Commission's efforts to procure undeveloped land in the city if they have access to it. And I think this will be encouraging.
Yeah, especially with what you mentioned about the rail trail being right there. As soon as that's paved and everyone starts using that more often, and they see Paul's Path and the
Right.
sign, I think that'll be a great educational experience.
There's a lot of different types of wildlife out there that's very pretty to look at, and I personally love the trail myself, and there's a different variety of ecosystems.
And Lynn's idea of maybe if people use this and maybe let the other one go, I mean, that's nothing that you can control, but
Of
maybe the community could sort of work toward that, and then sort of preserve more area as a result, so. I like that idea.
To that end, I guess I'm curious about that path that does exist already. Is that something that could be used by more people and could be enhanced rather than creating a new trail?
Definitely, it's already been used often. You could tell it's very well, I'd say grounded. They've used it for many years, so it's I'd say about 4 to 5 feet wide in different areas, but there definitely be some places they do have to repair. And I'm not too sure exactly if that trail does cross over any wetland areas.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe everybody else knows, I am trying to clarify, so does your trail cross over the wetland, or your trail doesn't go in between those two wetlands?
So the line trail getting into the loop itself does not, but the line going into that does go over a wetland area.
Okay. So there's
That's
no-
already established, or not established, but that's already been kind of used, and it wouldn't have to be cleared.
Okay. So, yeah, we definitely would need to, but that's not on in the conservation easement then, in the conservation property? Or is it?
It is.
Okay, it is. So, yeah, I'm thinking we definitely want to keep bikes off of that for sure, and to consider closing it down. And maybe have a viewing area or a little area where people can spot and look over the two wetlands, because it's really pretty. And that whole area is really pretty, but that's really special. And I'm sure there's a lot of wildlife in there that would be totally disturbed by somebody walking right in between, and then not to mention the erosion. So
What about a boardwalk there?
you could do that. I mean, then it would still be disturbing the area, but it would be better than
Than just trampling. on it.
trampling the area. But it would be, yeah. So if you're not doing anything there, maybe we should do something, on signs and stuff like that, if we can.
Would you want to limit bicycle usage throughout the whole trail, or just?
I think that would be really hard to do.
Yeah, I don't know how, even going through the wetland, the sensitive area, is that something where you just have a sign that says, please walk your bike here, or
I
stay
don't
on
think
the
that would
path?
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
But that's why I was suggesting a boardwalk over that low area between the two wetlands, you know, to keep people sort of on that boardwalk, on that trail, rather than deviating. But
Problem is, it's got a bunch of big trees right through the middle of it, so.
There are a bunch of big trees through the middle of this. It would be very hard to bike on. So over this area is the only part where it crosses over that the wetland area. And there are many trees kind of in the middle of that. So it basically right here, with showing the access point, there's like kind of an intersection where it either goes around this loop, which is the neighbor's trail, or you go right, which would be, it's also part of the neighbor's trail. There's just one big loop. And then once you meet here, kind of there's another intersection. This would be the trail that would be my trail. This trail right here has already been defined by the neighbors.
Right.
And there's no, you don't want to use the existing neighbor trail and then we call that Paul's path? Or you're like determined to make a new path?
I wouldn't know if the neighbors would allow me to take that as theirs. I don't know if it
well,
goes
it's
on
the
some
city of
properties.
Portsmouth's property, so
I don't know yeah. So that area, I could make to Paul's Path there, but it is already very defined for it, and there's not a lot of clearing or much of a project to do for it.
I mean, there's probably some ways to enhance it, like through interpretation and even just like physically mapping it and explaining it and promoting it with signs and fostering stewardship and thinking hard about what is the stewardship message there.
Of course.
It's maybe not quite as exciting though as like blazing a new trail. I get that, but
I'm pretty sure that this part right here does go through wetlands. There, part of their trail, right over here, this area, does go through wetlands. So there is a part that does, and it's very hard to, because right here is a big wetland area, and there's not really an access point that you can not hit a wetland area. It's just one kind of, like this loop right here, there's no other way to kind of reroute it, because there's just a big patch of wetlands right here. So that's why their trail already is built onto wetland areas. And that's how
their
they
trail
tried
sounds
to.
like it's doing worse job.
They've created their own kind of boardwalk by putting like pallets and just things on top of it.
Yeah, very bad, yep.
You guys didn't go to that area?
I think so.
You did not go to the area. I looked more onto the actual trail, and then when you go back on it, it's definitely, they put pallets down and old kind of planks.
Did you see any camping out there? I mean,
That was, actually, I was going to bring that up as kind of a concern. There are 2 abandoned homeless camps right here. And
Oh, that's where it is then, okay.
I would need to clean that up, but as scouts, I'm not allowed to clean that up for the safety guide. So I don't know if the city does that or there's an outside party that would be able to do that for me. I'm not allowed to clean it up or go touch it
sure.
anyway. It's right here at the intersection, and then right over here again. There's 2 kind of old abandoned camps, not much of anything. It's definitely been abandoned for a very long time. There's like a couple sleeping bags and a random shoe. But there is some trash that would need to be picked up, and we could pick up trash, but picking up abandoned homeless kids is very dangerous, especially for young scouts and the
for
hazardous
sure.
materials.
Yeah, I think that might fall under the police department as well.
that's what they've done previously, yeah.
So how much is the city involved in this? So, do you know?
Involved in the
His project?
Well, it sounds like since it's on city land, it would need to be signed off by someone, a representative of the city, which we're thinking would be Karen initially. But I think we took an initial walk out there a couple months ago. But it might be a good idea if all of us want to do an additional site walk, just to get a lay of the land and maybe have further suggestions.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Is
It's very hard to just imagine what's going on there.
You definitely need to walk it to see kind of the area of the wetlands and what they've done with it. They've put just a ton of planks on it. It's not really an official boardwalk or anything.
Yeah, that would be,
Yeah, and 26, Pula 26 is right on the other side of the trail, and that's got a similar situation. There are trails in there. I'm pretty sure that I saw camping sites at homeless encampments at some point in time, because it's a large area that's nobody's close to.
Right.
You know, so it's a perfect place to go. And so that's another reason why I think that if we encourage foot traffic into some of these areas, that it would keep that kind of
we're down.
homeless camp out.
Is it, if it were just a walking path and bikes weren't allowed, would you, is that sort of running counter to what you were hoping?
I think it'd be very hard to control that,
Yeah,
because it
because
is a
people are
rail
gonna
trail, and
be
there's a
using
lot
the
of bikes.
I know, but if you're walking and there's a sign saying no bikes, people might, you know, the way a dog without a leash. I'm just saying, bikes are really destructive. I bike a lot, but they are really destructive for any trail.
Of course.
And I've gotten to the point where I just hate seeing mountain bikes out on the road, out on the trails, because they're trashing it. And that's coming from a bike lover. So,
It would just
and
be, it can make it just a
also,
lot.
there's that one over by the reservoir that is this like massive bike trail with jumps and all kinds of things. And I figure, you know, if you're biking along the bike path, it's kind of nice to actually get off and then just have a place to walk. It uses different muscles, and then
Right.
you got that. And then if the serious people, mountain bikers, they're going out on that trail that's like not condoned, but is there. I'm just wondering, anyway, I don't
Well,
know. Just-
my plan with it was not for it to be a bike trail, just as a walk trail, because my
Okay.
grandpa would walk that.
Because when you have bikers and walkers on the same trail too, that's, because
Yeah.
mountain bikers, they're more reckless, and they, you know, other than going through puddles and trash and the soil, they're not always yielding to the pedestrians either.
Of course.
It's
It
not
does
the
have a bit of
best.
terrain on this area. There is a pretty, say, decent sized hill there, where you have to go up and then you go around and then you go down kind of a loop, and there's places where I'd say a mountain biker would definitely like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you did put no mountain bikes on there, no bikes on there, I think that it would help some, but I don't think it would totally take it away. I definitely think there would people that would go on that trail for mountain biking purposes.
If I could just, oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, and Peter can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe since recreational trails are allowed on city land and conservation property, I don't think we can limit bike usage on these trails as a city, but we can certainly put up signage about sensitive areas, keep bikes on paths. I'm not sure
That's,
what we could do to prevent.
anyway, I'm just trying, because it's,
Good thing to think about.
I was just going to ask you, what is your timeline for doing this? When do you?
Well, my timeline, I'm trying this done as soon as possible. Basically, I'm going into senior year, and so I can't work on this until before I turn 18. So once I turn 18, I can't work on this anymore. So I'd say the next couple months, I'd like to start, of course, developing the trail, and after this, I'd be fundraising for it.
Okay. So would there be time for us to go out maybe with you to, you know, whoever's available on a day
course.
in the next few weeks or something?
Yes, of course.
To do that, and because you've kind of awakened everybody's awareness of, you know, the potential here, which is awesome. I think you coming forward is just what we need to kind of get us going and to get us interested in what's happening out there. So
Of course.
if there's time to do that, it would be great.
I definitely do have time to show you guys around. It's a really nice area, and I definitely think it will be used, because this is already a place where a lot of people walk, and especially with the new development of it, I definitely think it'll be a hot spot for walkers who are kind of, I'd not say bored, but want to kind of get off and look into the cool kind of atmosphere that's around them.
Yes, I think so too. I think it's great. Is it okay for us to work with?
Do we
to
want to try to
something?
schedule something? I know we all tend to, I don't know if we like, but we all fit well with Wednesdays at 3:30. Is that something we want to try for next week, if we want to go that early? if that works.
Can't go next week, but that's, I mean, that might be the only
Or
one.
maybe
so-
we can send out a doodle, another doodle poll.
The summer is hard.
Because you must love doing that so much.
Well, they're fun. But is next week or even the end of this week something that's possible for anybody? If we're trying to do some crunch time
Next week.
next week, maybe?
Yeah. I could potentially figure it out next week. This week might be a little hard at this point.
Okay, so maybe I'll send around some dates and times for next week.
Yeah, I can't do it, but yeah, and everybody else could do it.
Is that something that would work for you, Ian?
Oh, yeah, that would work for me, of course.
Yeah, we really appreciate this. You doing this is definitely needs to be done, and
Of course.
it seems like you're very good at, you know, thinking about all the different things that are going to be impacted, and you're also really great at presenting this to us. I think
Thank you.
You have a good even tone on this, so we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have his contact and
Yeah,
everything.
okay, so I'll reach out tomorrow and try to
Alright.
plan something for next week as soon as possible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ann. So, on the agenda, we now have joint work session dates.
So another doodle poll. So thank you all for filling it out. So we, I know I sent out a lot of different dates and times. We were just trying to find as many possible afternoon and night meetings that we could. So I picked about the top 6 that looked like nearly all of us could make it, and those were late August, mid-September, and those went out to planning board this morning, and I believe 4 or 5 of them have responded so far, so we're still waiting for a few more planning board members to decide what dates work for them. Hopefully we'll have that all by tomorrow. I know it's like one day late, sorry about that, but, and then we should have a work session scheduled by the end of this week, I would think, for both of us. And then I think once we have that date planned, not to move along too quick, but once we have that date planned, we can look at those other dates that worked for the majority of us to try to do a non-public for just us to talk about
So,
conservation.
so you're suggesting looking at the dates that you've already published to schedule our non-public work session?
If those times still work for everybody, I think some of them were 3:30 to 5:30, some of them were 6 to 8, 7 to 9. I don't know if we think we need 2 hours for that. Maybe not that much time. Maybe an hour is needed, but if we think we want a separate poll for that, that's totally.
No, I was hoping that you could do it from what you had.
Yeah, that'll make it easy. That'll make it very easy.
Please.
But hopefully that'll be soon, so get that scheduled and on the books.
The idea is to just meet as a group before we meet with the planning commission? Is that what I'm hearing? 2 different meetings?
So it'll be the joint one with the planning board, but then since we already met as a work session to discuss the changes, I don't think we'll have to meet again. But the other non-public is to discuss conservation properties again and start
Okay,
to look
sorry.
into that, which shouldn't take too long, I guess.
Thanks for doing that, Kate.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry it's taking
Yeah.
so long.
And then, the only other business I had was on, I don't know if anybody read the opinion section of does anybody read the Herald here? It was on light pollution. Did you read that?
No, I didn't see it.
And they talked a little bit about some local ordinances. Peter's mentioned that we do have, you know, the Dark Skies initiative. This seemed like it might have gone a little further. And I'll find it and send it out to everybody just
That'd be great.
for discussion purposes, maybe. Especially during that planning board meeting, if that's on anybody else's radar. Is there any other business, anybody?
Well, I had a question that you guys brought up last week. Did you? And it has to do with the mosquito control that's going on in the wetlands. You guys, I think somebody brought that up at the end of the meeting last month. Anyway, are they allowed to do mosquito control in the wetland buffer?
I would think that's considered an herbicide or a pesticide, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're allowed to, but I know it happens.
It
and it's
happens, yeah.
Force.
So usually I'm given a number, or there's a number that goes out that says, call this number if you don't want your property sprayed, because I don't want anything like that on my property, and I have called before, but I don't know, I haven't seen it.
That's for the city, though. That's
That's when the city does their spraying.
which they're
This
not
is-
doing now. because they didn't
Really?
budget
'Cause I
for
thought
it.
I saw something in the paper the other day.
Oh,
that
maybe they
said-
budgeted, they weren't doing it. They may have.
Okay, I
because
hope
of
they're
that.
not.
Because I saw somebody on the North Mill Pond, and I stopped, I couldn't catch them then. I asked the person whose land it was on. She didn't know anything about it. It turned out it was another property that is sort of like around the corner and whatever, but their wetlands connects to that property owners. Anyway, a week or whatever later, I saw the people actually they were throwing this powdery stuff, or the nugget, little pellets or something in the wetlands, right, I mean, within 25 feet of the water line. And I asked them what it was, and they said, well, they weren't sure of the name. It was like, they were just out under the borders of their.
Scumbergi?
What?
There's a bacteria that
Yeah,
will attack the,
It attacks the larva. They called it like FBI, but they weren't sure if that was the name. And is that, okay, so what it is it attacks just mosquito larvae. But I'm sort of like, well, that's really screwing with the ecosystem anyway. But so is that legit to be happening? And then I was at Urban Forestry Center, and there was a Portsmouth City truck really close to the wetlands with a whole lot of big, the big plastic vats of different color liquid. And I'm wondering, what's going on? Are they spraying the wetlands? And that was at the Urban Forestry Center. So I'm just wondering,
I'm not sure about
what's
the urban
going on?
I'm not sure about that. That's not city-owned land, so that's state and private land over there. So I don't think we would have any
Okay.
spraying.
But it was
going
a
on.
city truck, so I was like, it didn't,
Not sure. Could be anything.
Listen,
Could be
pretty
just parking
sure.
there to talk to them. I know
so.
the arborists work together over there. I'm not sure about
Anyway.
that, but
Your shirt was a chemical though, as opposed to just like water?
Drawing or something?
Yeah.
Withdrawals.
I have no idea what it was. There wasn't anybody there to ask. The driver was away, and it was orange. One thing was orange, and I don't know what the other, it was not just plain water.
They weren't just like watering trees or something.
No, they weren't. And it was down by the wetlands. I don't think they're watering. I mean, it was down in the, it was right next to the area that's completely untouched because it's in the buffer zone.
like Elwyn Road, like off of Elwyn.
Yeah, the Urban Forestry Center, what?
Yeah. Like where was the truck parked? Like on.
Oh,
Elwyn?
the truck was down on the grass. It was in the
down
Urban
the
Forestry Center,
driveway,
and it was down on one of the paths that I never see tractors even or trucks going down. And it was down by there's a little shed sort of, anyway, kind of like the base of the open field. If you take a left and there's a trail that goes along and it goes up toward Route 1 along the salt marsh. It was basically at the bottom though, where there's like anyway, so I was just,
Peter, is there a pump station down there?
yeah, oh yeah, there's probably a pump building. There's like a little kind of 3 foot by 3 foot. It was to the left if you're looking at it.
Maybe they were doing sewer work or.
And by, probably 100 yards. And it was just, so anyway, that led me to wondering
What was happening?
why is there all this mosquito killing in wetlands stuff, so I just want to know. Okay, that's all.
And Lynn, sorry, we'll come back to it.
Oh, I don't know if this works for anybody else, but I feel like I'm having a little bit of trouble juggling job, kids, and Conservation Commission. For the Wednesday site visits, I was wondering if we could do 3:30 rather than 3 as the default. It just makes at least my life a little bit easier, or even a little bit later when the days are longer. Especially when it's only an hour. Like we could even do 4 to 5 rather than 3 to 4.
I would vote for that, if that's possible.
Yeah, we were just scheduling them at 3 for the spring because it was getting dark so quick.
Right.
But now that it's light till like 8:30,
That's not really anymore. We're going back.
I know.
The sun is setting at 8 o'clock
the
now.
next 2 months.
It's all before
Yeah, we
8.
can do the next few ones
At 3:30.
3 to 4:30, or 3:30. Sorry, 3:30. 3:30 back a little bit.
Or 4 to 5 even if you can.
Yeah,
Try 4 to
or
5.
45, whatever.
Is that
works.
okay?
Thank you.
No, not really. It's kind of late for me.
Oh.
Say 3:30 is ideal.
3:30. Okay.
Are we going with 3:30?
3:30.
Is that what you? Yeah.
Especially when we have more than two.
Right,
It's going to put it very late.
right.
3:30, and if we don't have very many, maybe we can change it, but.
Yep. Or if we do end up having 4 or 5, we can maybe break up the days that we do them. Do some in the morning, some in the afternoon, whatever works better.
I think I vote for doing them all at once, just
Yeah,
personally. I think people might feel differently.
Scheduling another day is really hard.
Make your life easier, too.
Just drink some coffee in the afternoon and just go all night.
It's been great doing the site visits, though. I'm so grateful that you've added that to the
Yeah, it's been great. I
routine.
think helps a lot.
They are helpful.
And I'm sorry I didn't think to even schedule one with Ian for the Pula site. It was, we walked it so long ago, and I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. It's a trail. People probably see this, but you know what? Not all of us know about these trails in Portsmouth. Like I've never seen it before either. So there's probably very good of us to go walk it.
And it's closed right now.
Is it closed?
Yeah.
Oh, because they're paving the rail.
Yeah.
Trail.
It'd be
So if you do it this week or next week, I think it might still be closed, so just, I mean, you can go in. If you
Yeah, that
just
might be a
say
good way
for
for
the
us
city,
to
but
access it.
It's DOT that's working on it.
Is there any kind of like, comprehensive plan for trails in all of the Portsmouth lands? It'd be nice to sort of see this kind of in context of all the other trails, both formal and informal.
Right.
Just to
That might be a Peter question. I know with the Pula study, there was suggestions for whether each Pula site would be suitable for trails, or if it already had trails on it.
Right.
So that's sort of like
Or for just golf.
yeah, for just golf, very baseline. I know there's the bike ped plan, but that's not really recreational trails. In the woods.
So the open space plan has some trails in it. We don't have a super extensive trail for plans, but that has anticipated trails around the city and trails that exist now. So that's the best place. And then the Pula study, and we don't have an online source, but we're trying to work towards that.
Okay, so this is sort of like in addition to all of that all those other trail concepts that are in that plan. The
open
Eagle
space
Scout
plan?
project.
All right?
I'm just thinking about how the Eagle Scout project fits into the overall plan. It sounds like
The
it's
only-
kind of in addition
That's
to.
really just a trail on some city-owned conservation land to get an Eagle Scout. So the thought, we gave them the idea to do it along the rail trail because there's going to be a lot of trails along that rail trail as we go forward, I'm assuming, just because it's good access. There's being a trail being built right now that you probably saw in the Beverly Hill Road subdivision. They have a trail from that subdivision out to the rail trail. They're building that as part of that project. So that's probably the first one that'll be built to the rail trail. But I imagine there'll be a lot more. There'll be people accessing it for the skate park off the rail trail. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, connecting the neighborhoods to the trail, so there's like
Yeah.
more access.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
great.
The only thing is that I was part of this
Thanks, Peter.
committee that was looking at the cross-country trail, basically, at the high school, because I think that it was looked at maybe being promoted as a trail that people could access, and how we would change it so that there would be more parking available, et cetera, and the neighborhood fought it tooth and nail.
Because they want to keep it sort of neighborhood. Yeah.
They don't want extra cars going down Jones Avenue. They don't want, they didn't want anything. And we were talking about accessing, there's a fenced off area that's all grass and it's over where the landfill used to be. And they got really up in arms about it. And so the fence was then locked, and nobody can do that. It gets mowed a couple times a year. But we can't access it because those people just don't want anybody back there.
Well, you can access it, you just can't promote it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I use it all the time.
Yeah, I do too.
What's the state of the rail trail? I mean, for a long time, it was sort of like, has Portsmouth gotten a go-ahead from the train company or whatever, the easement that was necessary for that? And what about all the other cities or
Yeah.
towns?
So it
south?
sounds like every town, Peter knows more about the approval deadlines, but I'm pretty sure it's been moving forward, and every town that's a part of it has their own choice how they want to pave
Yep,
their
or not.
section.
Yeah.
So we're doing, I believe, paving all of the Portsmouth section, but they've started doing that, and then they've done a few different design charrettes with the community in the past about what the different stops are gonna look like. So there's gonna be eventually one off where the skate park is going in, and there's one on Banfield that is gonna be sort of a small parking area onto the rail trail there. I'm not sure about the one that's going into downtown, but it sounds like it's moving forward if there's been
Yeah.
DOT construction so far. But I think the Portsmouth paving section will be a few years out till it's completely, flat and not gravel, which is what DOT is putting down.
So, okay. At some point, can we discuss that a little bit? I didn't know how it all ended up being paving and not like,
I thought that's what Portsmouth chose. Peter would know. I'm not sure if Greenland and Hampton are doing.
The city council?
sorry, Peter.
Sorry.
You should just get that.
Put a chair there and hang.
The rail trail, did we decide to pave the whole Portsmouth section or just parts of it?
Not the whole Portsmouth section. The thought, I think, right now is that they'd pave from downtown to the skate park, and the rest would be gravel, but
Okay.
it's not a done deal yet, so.
Downtown to where?
The skate park.
park.
Okay. Yeah, because the person I saw today said they were paving and it was DOT that was doing it, but I think,
They're not paving anywhere.
yeah, okay.
The DOT is just ending it with stone dust the whole length. That's how they're leaving it for the communities. The communities have to decide what they want to do on their section.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Sorry,
Okay.
brought it up.
Yeah, no, I'm glad because I don't appreciate having it be paved all the way.
No, not at all. Any other business?
The only thing was what we were talking about, we didn't know if, there were two things. One was, I guess it's up to the mayor regarding when he appoints somebody, whether they become an alternate or they become a regular member. Is that correct? Or do people apply to just be an alternate to the Conservation Commission?
I did not apply to be an alternate. I just found out I was one, just for the record.
Because, I mean, it kind of, to me, I feel like people that have been sitting here for a certain length of time should like move up because they understand the procedures and how things are done versus, getting somebody that's new, no offense to you, Adam, but, and he can vote right away, and we've got a couple people that have been sitting here for over a year that aren't in that position, and I guess maybe they're supposed to reapply if there's an opening, but we don't even know when there's an opening half the time, It might be good if we at least got notice to say, there's an opening for a regular commission member, so if you alternates would like to be a regular member, then please apply for the position.
Right.
And then the other thing that Barbara and I were talking about was that it happened a couple of weeks ago that neither Barbara nor Sam were here to run the meeting. And so it was just sort of a spur of the moment, well, I'll do it, I don't care. I'm wondering if maybe we could have something written that says the person that's been on the Conservation Commission for the longest in that, if that should arise, would take over the meeting. If Barbara and Sam could not do it, that, somebody that's at least familiar with the procedure would automatically be that person. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure if there's a state statute about when that happens, but I don't know if I've ever noticed it in the year I've been here.
It's
but-
almost like if the president and the vice president die, it's the
Right,
the
it's
head
like
of the
Secretary of State or whatever.
the house that.
The Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. I'm not sure of that, but we can check on that with legal. They might know what's the best course
Yeah,
of action or
it's
what's
just
the
that
best-
we winged it that day, it was like, is
Right,
it
that
okay
was
if
a-
I do this? Yeah, sure, do it,
But in terms of the appointments, I know the place that they get posted immediately is the city clerk's page, and I don't believe she sends out notices or is required to send out notices, but I know that the ultimate decision, whether it's alternate or regular, is up to the mayor, I believe. So it's nothing that staff can do, or I'm sure in your application you can, specify what you'd like to apply for.
There wasn't, it's just member of the Conservation Commission, at least the one I did.
No, they post each.
Each
I
position.
looked at it regularly, in fact, just today. And it lists alternate positions and it lists regular positions for each commission.
Okay.
I don't know if it always has, but it does now.
Maybe it hasn't in
The
the past. I'm not
application
sure.
was the same, I think.
But,
And I didn't have to clarify which one I was doing, anyway. Also, Sam had recommended to Brian and I that we could put our name in just now and say, I'd like to be considered for, if we wanted for a full thing, a full voting member. She suggested that as an option. So, but
The next
that would be good to know if one wants to, like from out of the gate instead of,
Is there a method to put your name in if there's no openings for Concom, or is this just
I think
maybe you just have a conversation with the mayor or the clerk's office?
I think she said go to the
note on file?
city
What,
clerk and
what was the question?
go to, it was, what Sam said, if we were interested, that we could put our name in with the
Oh.
city clerk, I believe?
You're
Is it-
allowed to put in an application for either, whether they're posted or not, and I would believe they remain on file for 1 year.
Yeah. Oh, 1 year, okay.
Right.
So maybe annually.
I'm pretty sure I've got it correct, because again, not for this purpose, but I looked into it for a completely different purpose, and that's what I recall. One minor thing that I would say, and it's not a nit, because of today, it's been consistent. I might suggest that at the beginning of each of these meetings, we take a census of who's here and whether or not we have a quorum, and if we need the alternates to vote, and we overtly say that, not just for us, because it's confusing,
Right.
but for the group. I think if we just added that to our process, it would be super helpful.
That's a good suggestion.
Good idea.
Very good idea.
A little check-in
I
minute at the
apologize for
beginning.
being late today, too. That makes it a little bit more complicated. I'm sorry.
What did you say?
I was late today, so I just want to apologize. It makes it more complicated to do what you're describing. It makes good sense, though.
Oh,
Then
it's
the other
fine.
thing that we probably ought to make part of it, and this is not something that I thought was part of it, except for when we saw people sitting there that we didn't know, is there anybody from the public that wants to speak?
Yeah,
You know, maybe
before we
we ought to,
vote.
I know it's an empty room, but we might say it anyway. I don't know.
And just have it as protocol.
Yeah.
Before any applications are heard?
No, I think that this would be to a particular, before we vote, like, and we've sort of stopped doing the, you can't talk anymore while we talk. That's the way it used to be anyway.
Right.
Unless asked a direct question.
Right, unless asked a direct question, but, because we're supposed to be able to sort of close it off and have discussion and a vote.
Right.
Once there's a motion on the table, so.
So I can let Sam know. Do you want me to let Sam know?
Sure, that we want to do a check-in in the beginning and then
Yeah, do the check-in
push
with
for
everybody.
public comment with each application.
She probably does it, but.
Saves. Scatterbrained. It's okay.
Make a motion that we adjourn?
I'll second.
Thank
you.
There.
All those in favor?